The war in Ukraine grinds on. Russia has intensified its offensive in the east. Ukrainian troops are facing relentless assaults. They are being forced to relinquish territory in the Donbas region. Donetsk and Luhansk are slowly slipping back into Russian hands. These small victories are strategically important for Russia. They allow Moscow to reshape the battlefield. Despite heavy casualties, Russia is making incremental gains. The human cost of these battles is staggering. Cities and towns are being reduced to rubble. Civilians are trapped in the crossfire. Millions have fled their homes. The humanitarian crisis deepens with every passing day. The international community watches with growing alarm. Yet, the fighting shows no signs of abating. The outcome in the east remains uncertain. Ukraine is determined to defend its territory. Its soldiers are fighting bravely against a larger, better-equipped enemy. But the situation is becoming increasingly precarious. Military analysts warn that Ukraine's ability to hold on is diminishing. The coming weeks will be crucial. Ukraine's ability to withstand Russian pressure will depend on several factors. These include the flow of Western military aid, the morale of its troops, and Russia's willingness to escalate the conflict. The world holds its breath. The battlefield is not the only front where Ukraine is under pressure. The losses in the east have weakened Ukraine's position in ceasefire negotiations. Every mile lost translates into diminished leverage. Russia, emboldened by its recent gains, is likely to harden its stance in any future talks. The Kremlin has already signaled its intention to press for concessions. These include recognition of its annexation of Crimea. Russia also seeks control over the entire Donbas region. Moscow insists on Ukraine's demilitarization. This would leave Ukraine vulnerable to future Russian aggression. Ukraine, for its part, remains defiant. It insists that it will not cede any territory. Kyiv argues that Russia is the aggressor and must be held accountable. Ukraine demands security guarantees from the West. It seeks a path to NATO membership. These demands have been met with sympathy, but no concrete commitments. The gap between the two sides remains wide. The prospects for a negotiated settlement appear dim. The international community is struggling to find a way to break the deadlock. The stakes are high. The future of Ukraine and indeed the security of Europe hang in the balance. Ukraine's ability to resist Russian aggression hinges on its capacity to defend itself. Here, Western support has been crucial. Military aid, including advanced weapons systems, has been flowing into Ukraine. However, this assistance faces growing logistical and political challenges. The sheer scale of the conflict is testing the limits of Western stockpiles. Ukraine is burning through ammunition and equipment at an alarming rate. Replacing these supplies is proving difficult. Production lines are struggling to keep up with demand. The war has exposed vulnerabilities in Western defense planning. Political divisions in the West are also hindering the flow of aid. Some countries are hesitant to provide Ukraine with the heavy weaponry it needs to push back Russian forces. They fear escalating the conflict and provoking a wider war with Russia. The debate over how much and what kind of aid to provide is likely to intensify. Despite these challenges, Western support remains vital for Ukraine. The country is heavily reliant on external assistance to maintain its war effort. Any slowdown in aid could have serious consequences on the battlefield. Ukraine's Western partners face a difficult balancing act. They must provide enough support to enable Ukraine to defend itself, but they must also avoid actions that could lead to a catastrophic escalation of the conflict. The West is watching the situation in Ukraine with growing unease. The recent Russian advances have raised concerns about Ukraine's ability to resist further aggression. A protracted conflict with no end in sight is a nightmare scenario for the West. The potential for the conflict to spill over into neighboring NATO countries is a constant worry. The West is also concerned about the economic fallout from the war. Sanctions against Russia are having a global impact. The war is disrupting supply chains and fueling inflation. Despite these concerns, the West has ruled out direct military intervention in Ukraine. NATO has made it clear that it will not send troops to fight alongside Ukrainian forces. The alliance is focused on providing military and financial assistance. It is also strengthening its eastern flank to deter any potential Russian aggression. The West's long-term goal is to see a free and independent Ukraine. Achieving this goal will require continued support for Ukraine's struggle. It will also require maintaining pressure on Russia through sanctions and diplomatic isolation. The road ahead will be long and difficult, but the West must remain committed to supporting Ukraine's right to determine its own future.